Hey, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to go ahead and discuss some myths, particularly we're going to go through 21 myths within 21 videos. And it's going to be all the myths of nutrition and dietetics for 2021, I believe. Yeah. So this is off again, examine.com. That's what we're going with for all of our information and studies. So today, myth number one is protein bad for you? And particularly, is too much protein bad for you? And what is too much protein? And where did this even come from? Like, why was this told to us that protein's bad? So first off, we'll go into really how much protein should you intake. For someone who is physical or is physically active, exercises, trying to maintain or grow muscle, maybe reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes, trying to become more insulin sensitive, or even reducing the risk of type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's, we want to try to aim for 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So typically you'll see it like kilograms and all these studies, but we're going to go with pounds. And it's interesting because a lot of the studies that are telling us too much protein is bad, or giving us this number of protein that we should intake, it's usually with participants that have pre-existing conditions of renal issues. So they are either in stage 1, 2, 3 renal failure. Maybe they have a high GFR number. So that's your glomerular filtration rate that you can get from your blood work. Or they might have a high creatinine level. So it's a lot of these studies have participants that are already put in a bad situation for a really high protein consumption, because they're also comparing it to people who intake like 2 to 3 grams of protein per pound of body weight, which is they're going to two different ends of the spectrum, right? So we want to bring it closer to the middle for the average consumer, right? For the average person, average gym goer, average parent, and find out what is going to help you maintain functionality and maintain lean muscle mass, cognitive function, and such, right? So the first studies I actually found were from Harvard, and this is back in 2013, so obviously we've learned some stuff since then, but they were saying that they recommend 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body. So that means someone who weighs 140 pounds, that you should only intake 51 grams of protein. As far as like the background of these individuals that they were studying, it didn't give any information. It was like 1,400 women, and they didn't say if they had pre-existing conditions or not, or they were on medications, how physically active they were, what was their lean body mass, because you can be obese or even overweight at 140. It's really your ratio of how much lean muscle mass do you have compared to white adipose tissue or fat, right? So that's the first study, and I think since it comes from Harvard, it kind of sticks out to a lot of people, and that's also where a lot of our academia comes from for the medical field. But again, let's preference the medical doctors, although they are great at operations and surgery and such, and observation, but they are terrible at nutrition. They're terrible at physiology and how nutrition and how supplements or the biochemistry, how it actually is metabolized by the body. They don't really go through classes for that. They go through classes to help with, again, prescribing medication, and then also just being good at their crafts, right? So surgery. And so the other website that we usually get a lot of research and studies from, Pubmedgov. So the effects of high protein diets on kidney health and longevity. Again, they're using people who are going to be kind of at risk for kidney disease, right? So CKD, it's usually what you read in the studies. And they don't give in this specific one, like a recommended value, which is smart because everyone's so dependent on how much protein that they would need, because it should be based on your lean body mass, should be based on your physical activity, height, weight, GFR number. And GFR numbers, again, when you get those, you'll see different parameters within the blood work, and it's based on, race, ethnicity, sex, age. So they always change. So it's not, this is the, this is like, say, for example, like testosterone, it's not like between 200 and 800. That's not, this one's GFR is a moving scale, it's a sliding scale, right? And it's a lot of different variables. However, what I find to be the most efficacious amount of protein, again, we're going to use pounds, not kilograms, is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Why do we choose that? Because it's easy to remember and easy to calculate. So if you weigh 200 pounds, try to shoot for 200 grams of protein. Does it matter the source of protein? Not really. By the end of the day, if you're eating whole foods and maybe a shake here and there, you should be getting plenty amount of amino acids and a good ratio of amino acids in the body to stimulate muscle growth, to stimulate biochemical reactions within the body, because protein is needed for every building block within our body. It does everything down to our DNA. Amino acids make up our DNA, right? So, but I assume that the people that are watching this are going to be wanting to either build muscle, maintain muscle, lose body fat, and that's where having this higher protein as the main foundation, or I guess as a foundation for your diet, it's going to help you with all the other parameters. So if we have our protein at 1 gram per pound of body weight, which you can use MyFitnessPal app, you can do the algorithms to figure out like how much calories you should be intaking. We set that protein as a number that we're not going to change. So it's not tangible, right? So we're always going to hit that. We are going to manipulate the fats and carbs to hit our calorie need, okay? So like I said in the previous video, it's not calories king, calories in versus calories out. That's good, that's a number, but those calories are made up of our macronutrients, right? So it's not one or the other, it's them all used together. It's going to give you the best results. Okay, so the other like conclusions in the study were saying that as we age, our body will, breaking down food, breaking down calories, it's a very metabolically stressful environment. So that's what can cause rapid aging, which is why we usually see people who live longer, they eat less, right? So like in other countries, they eat like 1 meal a day, so OMAD, or they do a lot of intermittent fasting, but then also they are physically active. So is it the diet, the less eating, or is it the being physically active that's keeping their body healthy and keeping them living longer? So we do know that, at least in our culture, in the Western society, we have an issue with osteoporosis, osteopenia. So a lot of bone loss within our older generation. And that's mainly due to lack of physical activity or increased consumption of processed foods, and then decreasing their consumption of protein because maybe they don't have an appetite, or they may be on other medications that are not causing them to have enough acid in their stomach to break down the protein, and then they don't like eating protein because they feel lethargic or they feel like they can't eat more. Now, with all those given variables, we see a greater, a less of a risk of Alzheimer's, bone loss, loss of lean muscle mass in individuals who stay active, and who keep mobility and have that muscular function. We see less of all that. We see less of Alzheimer's. We see them have a very high protein consumption. typically from ruminous animals. So that's going to give you the majority of amino acids and micronutrients that your body needs, because we are made of muscle. We want to eat muscle, right? It's meant for us. And they also typically shoot for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And so it's just going to be a good idea to implement that into your diet. So that's the very beginning of your diet journey, or your weight loss journey, or muscle building journey, is focusing on how much of the protein that you need. So as far as it causing issues with kidneys, so causing an increase in GFR, an increase in creatinine levels, this, like examine.com shows, this myth has been debunked. And again, it's because people have pre-existing conditions, or they're on medications that cause kidney issues, because sometimes drugs, they're not only metabolized and filtered through the liver, a lot of them are metabolized and filtered through the kidneys. So you're putting extra stress on the kidneys. So is it the protein, or is it the actual medications? Or is it your diabetes that's causing this? Is it causing fluid retention? Is it causing some issues with your aldosterone, with fluid balance, right? With the sodium, potassium levels, and phosphorus and calcium. So it's not the protein, it's the lifestyle that we're choosing now of eating less protein and increasing sugar foods, or in conjunction with fats, and then the lack of physical activity. That's really what's causing the issue. So I think that's pretty much it. So that's the myth that's been debunked. If there's any issue with GFR numbers going up, or with creatinine levels going up, I mean, there might be another underlying issue, but I highly doubt that it's going to be because of protein. If you're eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, I would say if you really want to test the waters, why not try eating 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, and go get your blood tested like a month later or 2 months later, and see really what happens. That's, if you want to play guinea pig with yourself, that's the way that I would go about. And then you can assess how much protein that you actually need. But we've also heard from other athletes where they start eating a lower protein, so like maybe 0.7 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight, but then they also eat more carbohydrates, because carbs give you energy as you do your athletic performance, but then they're also protein sparing, so you don't have to eat as much. But some of them actually came back and said that they felt like their recovery has been hindered. And so whether they increase consumption of protein through a protein powder, which that's really what we wanted to supplement with, or through a branch chain and essential amino acids, something that's very complex that can help with recovery, either one of those. But your protein is always going to be king, again, because of the amino acid profile within it. It's going to help with that recovery. And so they will usually go back to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I mean, for example, look at all the people that are going vegan who are athletes. They built their body and their muscles on meat, and then they switch to vegan and they start getting injured, or they don't perform well, they lose recovery, they're more lethargic. So it dampers their performance, right? So it's silly to eat less protein, like what they're recommending. It's silly to eat 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Like that's absurd. It's ridiculous. Unless you have some stage renal failure, then that's where you'd work with a sports nutritionist, in my opinion, not a dietetic, not a doctor, because again, they really don't know. A sports nutritionist, someone who understands the physiology and the breakdown metabolism of proteins and nutrients within the body. That's it. I'm leaving it there, and I think that's it. Going to be for the first myth bust of 2021. All right, guys.